Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I shoved the bathroom door with my shoulder and heard my name. I am Alex and I am 27, and I still hear that moment in my head. My girlfriend Mia laughed somewhere out in the bar with her friends. Her laugh spiked over the crowd and something in me tightened. I should have kept walking, pretended I heard nothing. Instead, I froze with the door half open and my hands stuck. The bar music beat against the hallway, yet her voice cut through. She said my name again and dragged out the last letter. There was a sharp cheer from the table and someone hit the bar. I felt like an idiot hiding in a bathroom over one laugh. You know when people think you left and they relax around your name? That was the vibe, and I told myself I was overreacting already. He is so shy about it, Mia started, and they cracked up. My shoulders went tight because I knew what it was already. We had a promise about that one thing and she stepped right on it. I leaned closer to the gap and tried to breathe as quiet as possible. Seriously, he gets weird if I even mention it in bed. The word bed hit harder than it should have and my throat closed. One of her friends whistled and another one said they already knew that. They did not know it from me, which made everything feel worse. He gets all tense about his size, Mia went on with a little laugh. Like I care that much. I am still there, right? The word size bounced around the tile and I wanted to rip it down. I suddenly knew exactly where her hand had been when she said that. That was mine and they were drinking it for sport. My first instinct was to slam the door open and start yelling. Another instinct told me to wait until they changed topics, then sneak out. I stood there debating like some weird hostage while they dissected my bedroom. It felt pathetic, and I knew that even while it happened. Knowing did not help because my feet would not move. Come on, he is not that bad, one of them teased. He just gets in his head and overthinks every little thing. That line sounded almost kind, and somehow it cut even deeper. You should hear the speeches he gives after, Mia added with another burst. They laughed at the word speeches like my anxiety was a comedy routine. I know this sounds dramatic now, but in that moment it cracked something. Up to then I thought I was insecure yet still respected in private. Hearing my worst bedroom thoughts turned into a party story did something ugly. I felt anger and shame and also this weird loyal urge to defend her. You know that confusing mix where you bleed and still cover the knife. I forced myself to move and locked the stall like I had just arrived. I flushed even though nothing happened, just to make some kind of noise. In the hallway their voices dropped for a second, then rose again, stronger. Maybe he is in there right now, one of them joked in a sing-song voice. My heart stopped because for a second I thought they actually knew. Then Mia lowered her tone and I could barely catch the next part. Look, he is sweet and he tries hard, she said softer. He just thinks he is smaller than he actually is and freaks out. They burst out at the word smaller and someone repeated it twice like a chant. Right there they created a version of me I did not recognize. I realized the topic would not die and that staying hidden made me complicit. If I walked out angry, they would know I heard everything and that image scared me. If I waited longer, I would stay in that cramped space forever replaying their lines. So I washed my hands for real and studied my face like it belonged to someone else. I practiced a neutral smile that felt fake and still opened the door. The hallway seemed louder when I stepped out and their table fell quiet for half a beat. Mia saw me first and her mouth opened in a quick nervous grin. There he is, she said with a voice a little too bright. Her friends glanced at each other and then at me like I might explode. I felt all their eyes slide over the secret parts they had just scored like a game. I pulled my chair back in and tried to sit like nothing shifted. You were gone a while, Mia said and gave me a playful shove. I shrugged and took a sip of my drink, so I had an excuse not to answer. Everything good, she asked as her eyes searched my face for any crack. I heard myself say yeah, of course, and my voice sounded almost normal. I could have told her right there that I heard every word and that my trust shifted. Instead, I swallowed it down because I did not want to be the jealous guy who eavesdropped. She laughed again and leaned into my side like she was still on my team. I laughed too and tried to match her energy while my ears rang with the word smaller. Back then I told myself it was just dumb bar talk, now I know it was the start. I shut our door too hard and the frame rattled. Mia kicked off her shoes and tossed her bag on the chair. "You good?" she asked while she pulled off her earrings. The question sounded casual and my chest tightened like a pulled knot. I knew if I waited I would swallow it forever. "We need to talk about earlier." The words came out dry and flatter than I wanted. She stopped in the hallway and turned with a small frown. "What earlier?" she asked and tilted her head like I was vague. That fake confusion hit me harder than the jokes at the bar. "In the bar." I stepped closer and felt my pulse in my neck. "When I was in the bathroom and you were with your friends." Her mouth twitched and I watched the recognition flare then disappear. She covered it fast and I realized she knew exactly what I meant. "Okay, what about it?" She crossed her arms and waited like I was starting drama. "I heard you," I said, and my voice shook on the last word. "I heard the whole conversation about me and about, you know." Saying it out loud made my face burn harder than the memory itself. She exhaled through her nose and dropped her arms with a shrug. "Seriously, Alex," she muttered and walked past me toward the kitchen. "We were just messing around," she called out while opening a cabinet. "That is how we joke, it was nothing serious." She did not even look at me, and I felt my stomach flip. "It was not nothing." I followed and gripped the edge of the counter to keep steady. "You talked about my body and about things from our bed. The stuff I trusted you with, the stuff I am insecure about." The last word came out rough, and suddenly I hated hearing my own voice. She spun around and leaned back against the counter with a sigh. "Everyone vents about their relationships," she said and lifted her hands. "Nobody there is judging you, they literally adore you. It was just girl talk, you are blowing it way out of proportion." That phrase landed like a slap because it translated to "stop feeling this." "Girl talk is you complaining I never wash dishes," I shot back. "Girl talk is not a rating of how I am built naked." They repeated a nickname, Mia, and you laughed with them. My throat tightened again and I could not get the nickname itself out. Even thinking it made my skin crawl like I was shrinking in my own home. She rolled her eyes and pushed off the counter toward me. "Why were you listening outside the bathroom anyway?" Her tone sharpened and she jabbed a finger toward the hallway. "Do you know how creepy that sounds, just standing there listening?" She flipped it quick and suddenly I was the sneaky one. I was walking out and I heard my name. I raised my hands and tried to keep my temper in check. I froze for a second because it sounded bad and then it got worse. What was I supposed to do, cover my ears and hum? Even as I defended myself, I felt childish and guilty for existing. She softened a little and stepped closer until we almost touched. "Babe, listen," she whispered and her fingers brushed my forearm. "They know we sleep together, this is not some huge reveal. We were a little drunk, it got out of hand, that is all." Her eyes searched my face like she just needed me to accept that version. "It is not about them knowing we sleep together." I pulled my arm back and she let her hand fall. "It is about you taking my biggest hang-up and turning it into entertainment. I told you that stuff because I trusted you not to make it public." Saying the word trusted made something twist because I already felt it cracking. She paced a short line across the kitchen and rubbed her forehead. "You always get so intense about this, it is exhausting. Do you really think my friends sit around judging your body? They were laughing with me, not at you, you are reading it wrong." I heard her say that and felt the exact opposite of heard. The worst part is some piece of me almost agreed with her. Even now I can see how tired she looked and I hate that detail. I started wondering if I really had overreacted by standing there listening. That doubt crawled in and made room right next to the anger. Once doubt moves in, it rearranges everything and you stop trusting your own memory. "I need you to stop sharing that kind of stuff," I said finally. My voice dropped and the adrenaline faded into a dull headache. "I am not saying never complain about me, I get that happens. But no more details about downstairs, no more jokes, nothing." I felt weirdly formal repeating it like some contract that only I valued. She watched me for a long moment and the room went very quiet. "Fine," she answered and her shoulders slumped a little. "I will not bring that up with them again, okay?" But you have to stop acting like I betrayed you in some huge way. The way she ranked the hurt made me feel childish for even asking. I nodded because I did not know what else to do right then. Arguing more would only push her further into defense and blame. I told myself I could live with that promise and let the rest go. So I forced a small smile and suggest, "Ed, we order something to eat." That moment still makes me cringe because I basically thanked her for basic respect. We carried the conversation to the couch like nothing explosive happened. She scrolled through her phone while we waited for our food delivery. "Are we good now?" she asked without looking up from the screen. "Yeah, we are good," I answered, and my tongue tasted like metal. I knew we were not good, I just did not want another fight. A few seconds later, her thumb flew over the screen and a grin appeared. She tilted the phone away from me out of habit more than intent. The move was small, but my stomach reacted before my brain caught up. For a split second, I imagined a message dropping into that chat about me. Something like, "He is freaking out over nothing, I will calm him down." Back then, I did not ask to see what she typed or who it was. I pretended I trusted her and glued my eyes to the muted television. My chest still buzzed from the earlier argument, yet I smiled when she leaned in. I convinced myself this was just a bump and her promise would hold. Looking back, that was the night I chose peace on the surface over honesty. Her phone lit up between us while the movie dragged on. The screen flashed my first name and a little fruit icon. She scooped it up fast, thumb over the preview like a reflex. "Pause this, I have to answer something," she murmured toward the screen. That tiny word "something" sat between us louder than the movie. I hit pause and watched her thumbs move in quick short bursts. She half turned away on the couch, shoulder angled like a shield. Every few seconds she smirked at whatever popped up next. My name glowed again for a split second before her hand covered it. My chest did that tight jump it does when your brain whispers you know. "Busy night for your group," I joked, forcing my voice light and playful. "What are you all roasting now?" I nudged her ankle with my foot. "Just memes," she replied and locked the screen without showing me anything. Then she leaned over, grabbed the remote and restarted the movie fast. That speed told me more than any explanation ever could. I tried to focus on the scene, I really did. You know that feeling where the plot moves but your eyes blur? Every time her phone buzzed against the cushion, my attention snapped sideways. She ignored the first two vibrations, then caved and checked the third. Again that flash of my name, again the quick cover. "I thought you said you stopped talking about me in there," I asked. I kept my eyes on the television so it would sound casual enough. She went still for a second, then let out a short laugh. "Relax, they were asking if you liked the restaurant last week." The answer came too smooth, like something rehearsed in advance. I did not believe that, not really, but I wanted to. Believing her meant I was not crazy or clingy or whatever word. "Nobody is swapping bedroom stories anymore, right?" I pushed a little further. The promise from that first fight sat heavy in the room. She clicked the volume up and finally looked straight at me. "I told you I stopped," she replied, voice low and oddly patient. "We talked once, it got out of hand, I learned my lesson." She rested her head on my shoulder and waited for me to melt. "I am not breaking your trust, I heard you that night." The way she stressed heard made me feel guilty for doubting again. Another alert buzzed against my leg and ruined the moment instantly. She cursed under her breath, snatched the phone and locked it again. "No more tonight, I am ignoring them now, happy," she announced. She placed the phone face down on the coffee table with a tap. My eyes stayed on that piece of glass like it could confess everything. I could have asked to see the chat right then. That would have been reasonable, considering what happened at the bar. Instead, I told myself that asking to look would cross some line. I did not want to become the boyfriend who checks every notification. So I sat there hugging my own arms and pretended I was fine. We let the movie play in the background while the silence grew heavier. She scooted closer and traced tiny lines on my wrist with one finger. "You know I love you, right?" she whispered into my shoulder. "I joke around with them, but you are my actual person." Those words landed like warm water over something already cracked. I turned my head and studied her face way too closely. Her eyes looked sincere enough, tired but gentle, maybe a bit annoyed. That is the part that still messes with me when I replay it. The affection was real, I do not doubt that even now. Real affection can sit right next to selfish choices, and that combination hurts. I kissed her and let the conversation fade because I was exhausted. She climbed into my lap and leaned her whole weight against my chest. For a few minutes, I forgot about the screen buzzing earlier. My brain clung to the idea that physical close-ins meant safety again. Looking back, I can see how much I wanted to be convinced. Much later, after the credits rolled, she went to shower. Her phone stayed on the table, still upside down, finally quiet. I stared at it like it might jump up and bite me. My hand actually hovered over it once, then dropped back to my side. I hated that I even considered checking, hated feeling like a suspicious stranger. While the water ran down the hall, the phone vibrated again. The sound made me flinch harder than I should for a notification. This time it shifted just enough that the lock screen turned toward me. I did not move closer, it just happened to angle in my direction. One short preview line appeared, then another, each one worse than the last. First message, you still worrying he will find out about the nickname. Second message popped right after, he is probably too insecure to ask anyway. My throat went dry so fast I actually swallowed air and coughed. I stood up before I even decided to stand up, legs moving on instinct. I backed away from the table like the device was something radioactive. I could have stepped in, picked it up, read the whole thread. My fingers twitched, then curled into fists at my sides instead. If I opened it, there would be no more guessing, no half comfort. There would only be solid proof, and I was not ready for that yet. It felt safer to live in the fog than stare at the cliff. The shower shut off and I heard the curtain slide on the rod. I rushed back to the couch and grabbed the remote like a prop. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it from there. When she walked back in, wrapped in a towel, I kept my eyes on the screen. She walked past me, scooped up the phone and checked it with a quick glance. Her face changed for a heartbeat, jaw tightening, then relaxing into something neutral. She typed a short reply, locked the screen and set it back down. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound more bored than terrified. "Yeah, just Jenna being dramatic again," she replied and rolled her eyes. There was a hint of nerves in her laugh that I tried to ignore. I know someone will ask why I did not confront her right there. Why I did not quote the preview word for word and demand answers. The truth is I felt half crazy already from the first incident. If I admitted I was reading her notifications now, I looked unhinged. So I swallowed my questions and let them sit like stones in my stomach. We went to bed a little later and she curled into my side. She rested her head on my chest and hooked her leg over mine. "You good now?" she whispered into the dark with a small yawn. I hesitated for a second too long, then forced out a quiet "yeah." That single lie kept the peace for one more fragile night. The phone buzzed again on her side of the bed while she slept. She did not wake up, she sleeps through everything once she knocks out. I lay there wide awake, staring at the ceiling, counting each vibration. Every buzz felt like another line about me landing in that chat. I did not know it yet, but I was already building my breaking point. Her phone was already unlocked when I walked into the kitchen. The group chat sat open on the counter, my name in bold. The only reason I saw it was because I reached for a glass. I froze with my hand hanging in the air like an idiot. Water ran in the bathroom down the hall, loud enough to cover anything. I should have turned away right then and left it alone. Instead, I leaned closer and read the first full line on top. "Did he start another speech after you brought up the size thing?" The word speech hit harder than size in that moment somehow. They remembered my anxious rambles so well they called them speeches now. Another line sat under it, time stamped from earlier that afternoon. "He practically gave a TED talk about feelings," one of them wrote. I laughed once under my breath because it stung and sounded accurate. Then I hated myself for finding any of it even slightly funny. That mix of agreement and anger made everything feel 10 times worse. I told myself I would just glance until the page refreshed. One quick check, confirm it was old, then walk away and breathe. My thumb moved before my brain caught up and scrolled up once. A block of messages jumped into view, stacked tight with emojis. My stomach dropped before I even finished the first sentence. "Honestly, he is overcompensating, it is not that impressive anyway." The next reply came from Mia with a little laughing emoji cluster. Right, but he treats it like a national crisis every time. Another friend answered fast, short kings need extra reassurance. Then someone added a new term for me, and I wish I never saw it. They called me travel size. I stood there in my own kitchen being turned into packaging. Has travel size calmed down since the bathroom incident? One of them wrote. Or is he still spiraling about his tiny pee? Problem. My chest actually hurt reading the word tiny sitting next to my nickname. I wanted to slam the phone shut and forget every line. Instead, I scrolled again because apparently pain has a curious side. Mia had typed a long message earlier that day about our fight. He made me promise not to talk about his little friend anymore. That is what I get for dating an anxious perfectionist. My vision blurred and I had to blink to clear it. I pressed the side of the phone to steady my hand a second. A new screenshot loaded in the thread and my heart stopped. I knew that layout. I recognized that exact block of text immediately. It was a picture of a message I had once sent her privately. Long paragraph, messy punctuation, written late one night after we hooked up. I had poured out every fear I had about being enough physically. I talked about freezing up, about past comments, about feeling broken sometimes. I remembered holding my breath while waiting for her response that night. Now that same message sat inside a chat window for everyone to dissect. Under the screenshot, the comments lined up one after another without mercy. Man, he really treats his junk like a therapy project. This is what happens when boys read too many self-help posts. I would lose it if my guy sent me an essay like that. The words essay and therapy slammed into each other and crushed my chest. Mia responded in the middle of that with a shrugging emoji. Yeah, but the sex is decent when he gets out of his head. He just thinks every inch matters more than it really does. Every inch. They had taken the exact language from my own message and weaponized it. I scrolled again because at this point my nervous system gave up. Further up was a different screenshot, one I did not recognize immediately. This time it was from a chat with my brother after a rough week. I saw my own bubble where I mentioned feeling small since high school. Then I saw Mia's earlier message in this group explaining that whole story. He got bullied in locker rooms, she had typed carelessly months back. Some jerk snapped a towel at him and cracked a joke. Now he treats intimacy like a performance review. It is exhausting. Someone added under that, no wonder he is travel size now, trauma arc. I actually had to grip the edge of the counter to stay upright. That locker room story was my hardest one to share with anyone. I remembered telling her with my heart pounding and my hands shaking. She had cried when she heard it, pulled me close, called me brave. Now the same memory sat here as a punchline for her friends. Nothing about that felt brave anymore, just exposed and stupid. I know people talk about their partners. I am not naive. I expected eye rolls, mild venting, complaints about habits or annoying quirks. I did not expect screenshots of my rawest confessions pinned inside a group. I did not expect them ranking my body like some casual rating exercise. They had an actual list farther up, scored with numbers and fruit icons. Stamina 7. Creativity 8. Overall package 5. Generous. The word generous sat there like a fake compliment thrown over a fence. I stared at that little scale and felt myself shrink with every category. My thumb finally moved in a different direction and hit the side buttons. I snapped a quick screenshot of the page before I could reconsider. Then another. Then another. Each capture felt disgusting and necessary at the same time. Part of me yelled that I was violating privacy beyond repair. Another part argued that privacy had already died when my trauma hit that chat. The timestamps lined up with nights we had argued about boundaries. I could see the exact day we fought and when she renewed the behavior. Proof stared back at me in those tiny little gray time markers. I sent the images to my own number with shaking hands. Each whoosh sound made me flinch, like she might hear it over the shower. I deleted the conversation from her message history once the last one delivered. The chat itself stayed open exactly where she left it originally. If she checked later, nothing would look different on her end. The bathroom water cut off abruptly, and silence rushed into the hallway. My body reacted faster than my mind and shoved the phone away. It slid back to the spot near the salt shaker where she always dropped it. I stepped to the fridge and grabbed a drink I did not actually want. I popped the cap just as the door opened, and steam drifted into the hall. She walked in tying her hair up, humming something under her breath. "Hey, you still hungry?" she asked while heading toward the pantry. I took a long swallow just to buy myself a second of composure. "Yeah, I could eat," I managed, forcing my voice toward neutral. Every syllable felt tight, like it might crack and spill everything. Her gaze slid once toward the counter where the phone rested. Nothing in her face changed, which most impressed me. She grabbed a snack, bumped my hip gently, and smiled up at me. "There's a game night this weekend, you down to host here?" That invitation hit different now that I had seen how they really talked. A game night with who, I asked, already knowing the answer. She listed the same people whose comments still bounced in my head. Hearing their names made the images in my messages sharpen even more. She noticed my hesitation and nudged my shoulder lightly. "Come on, it will be fun, you always end up laughing." Fun. The word echoed next to travel size and that rating list in my mind. I looked at her, at how relaxed she seemed, and something shifted inside. I realized she did not feel even slightly guilty bringing them into our home. Whatever guilt she had lived only in that chat, not in front of me. I forced a slow nod because I wanted time more than confrontation. "Yeah, sure, we can do that," I answered through clenched teeth. Her face lit up and she wrapped her arms around my neck. "You are the best, they love when we host stuff here." I hugged her back while my phone in the other room held every receipt. Later that night, I lay in bed with my own device inches from my face. The screenshots glared up at me in a neat chronological line. I scrolled through them again, even though each one hurt worse. Somewhere between the third and fourth image, an idea started forming. I did not know the exact shape yet, only that it involved a bigger screen. I linked my phone to the TV and hid the remote. It took 2 taps and my hand still felt unsteady. The home screen blinked for a second, then shifted back to normal. If anyone checked it later, it would look like a glitch. I knew it was loaded and ready the second I hit cast. The doorbell rang before I could talk myself out of it. Mia rushed past me, already calling out their names down the hallway. Her voice sounded bright and easy while my jaw clenched. I watched her swing the door open and pull everyone inside. They hugged her one by one like nothing ugly had ever been typed. Jenna strutted in first with that loud laugh that lived in the chat. Taylor followed with a bottle under one arm and a teasing grin. Brooke trailed behind, balancing a bag of snacks and rolling her eyes. They dropped their stuff on the table and collapsed onto the couch. Not one of them looked nervous, which somehow made my pulse race. "Host with the most," Jenna joked while bumping my shoulder with her fist. "You ready to lose again tonight?" she added with a smug smile. I forced a smirk and bumped her back harder than usual. "Yeah, I have been practicing my short game," slipped out of my mouth. Her eyes flickered for a beat like she heard something underneath that. Mia looped her arm through mine and leaned in. "Be nice, he is making food and drinks for all of you." She kissed my cheek quickly, then spun toward the kitchen. Jenna flopped onto the couch and unlocked her phone out of habit. For all I knew, the group chat was already active about this night. I set the snacks out on the table and kept my phone close. Every time I brushed it, I felt the screenshots waiting inside. I caught myself grinding my teeth and forced my jaw to relax. If I hesitated now, I knew I would cave and delete everything. Then all I would have left would be her version of events. "Okay, games or music first," Mia called out from the kitchen. "Games on the big screen," Taylor answered without missing a beat. "Obviously, couch tournament time, loser takes a shot." Brooke cheered and grabbed the controller from the coffee table. My chance basically wrapped itself and climbed into my hands. I picked up my phone and walked to the TV with slow steps. "Let me throw something on first," I said as casual as I could. Nobody looked suspicious, they were too busy arguing about teams. I opened the photos, tapped the album with the saved chat images. The first one filled my screen, timestamp and nickname and all. One more tap and the TV switched to the mirrored view. The room went quiet so fast it felt like the air changed. At first they thought it was an accident, I could see it. Dude, you are screen mirroring, Taylor laughed, reaching for the controller. His hand froze halfway when he realized what he was reading. The group title sat at the top in huge letters across the wall. Below it, one of Mia's messages stretched across the screen. Sometimes I have to hype him up like a child so he can finish. Underneath, Jenna had responded with a row of crying, laughing faces. My ears rang while that line floated over the room like a banner. Brooke squinted at the TV, then at her own phone in panic. Her face drained when she saw the identical chat on her screen. Turn it off, Mia snapped, lurching forward toward the remote. I stepped in front of the table and blocked her reach with my leg. Now I think we should actually look at this, I answered. Next screenshot low. Adade automatically with a little swipe of my thumb. Travel size is having another meltdown, send strength. Jenna had typed that one, time-stamped right after our last argument. Under it, Taylor had added, at least he is efficient, blink and done. A wave of silence hit that couch harder than any shout could. Nobody laughed now, not even out of reflex. Jenna's jaw hung open while her eyes darted between us. Taylor sank back against the cushion and stared at the floor. Brooke whispered a muffled "oh my god" into her hand. Mia turned toward me with a look that mixed fury and fear. You went through my phone, she hissed, taking a step closer. You dug through private conversations and now you are broadcasting them. Her chest rose fast like she could not get enough air in. I held up my phone with the chat still glowing on the screen. You did not leave me much choice once you exported my life, I replied. Another picture appeared on the TV, this one of my old message. The long one where I poured out every fear about being enough. They had circled one part and typed over it in bright letters. Imagine getting a whole essay just because he thinks he is small. Seeing it that large made my skin burn like I was standing naked. That was my text to you, I said, pointing at the screen. You screenshotted it and turned it into show and tell. Mia's eyes glossed over but her mouth stayed in a hard line. You are humiliating me in my own house, she shot back. No, I am showing them how you humiliated me when I was not here. Jenna finally moved, palms up like she wanted to push everything away. Okay, this is getting out of hand, we all joke around. We did not mean any serious harm, it was just exaggerated talk. Her voice shook more than she probably wanted us to hear. Funny how the jokes suddenly felt heavy when the target stood watching. You made bets on whether I would give another pep talk after sex. I swiped to the next screenshot where their predictions lined up. 3-1 says he writes another paragraph tonight, one line read. Loser brings wine next time, another message added underneath. I dragged my gaze up to meet theirs, one face at a time. Brooke's eyes filled, she looked away and wiped under her nose. I am so sorry, she whispered, barely getting the words out. I do not know why I went along with it, this looks horrible. I believed that part from her, maybe because she was already shaking. The others stayed quiet, which somehow felt even more revealing. Mia stepped between me and the TV like she could block the words. Turn it off right now or I am walking out, she warned. Her hands trembled but her voice tried to stay hard. You violated my privacy in the worst way, this is sick. She threw the word sick at me like nothing on that screen counted. You shared my childhood story with them, I answered slowly. You forwarded messages with my brother about that locker room stuff. You turned it into a punchline about why I am the way I am. My throat felt raw yet I could not stop talking now. If anyone here is sick, it is not the person who saved proof. Taylor finally stood up and rubbed the back of his neck. Look man, I crossed a line, I own that, he muttered. I should not have piled on, it was messed up. He glanced at Mia like he wanted backup for the apology. None came, she just kept staring at me with a mixture of rage and panic. Jenna dropped her phone onto the couch and raised her hands higher. I made that nickname, okay, that part is on me. I thought we were riffing, I did not think it would actually hurt you. She sounded more defensive than apologetic, which matched the messages. I figured you two joked like that together, I misread it. We do not, I shot back, heat rising up my neck. All those messages happened after I begged her to stop talking about it. She promised, then came right back to this chat and kept going. I tapped the timeline at the top of the screen where the dates lined up. This is every time my boundary got turned into another round of content. The room felt crowded even though there were just 5 people inside. Mia's eyes finally flashed away from the TV to my face. You wanted revenge, that is all this is, she spat. You could have broken up with me in private like an adult. Instead, you staged some twisted presentation to make me look like a monster. I laughed once, sharp and humorless, before I could stop it. You did that work on your own, I answered, nodding at the wall. I tried to handle it privately the first time, remember that. You told me it was harmless and that I was overthinking everything. So yeah, now everyone gets to see the unedited version of harmless. Brooke grabbed her bag with shaky hands and pushed herself up. I need to go, I cannot sit in this anymore. She glanced at me on her way to the door. For what it is worth, you did not deserve any of th. At she murmured. That one sentence felt like a tiny anchor in a pretty brutal storm. Jenna followed her out after a few seconds of frozen indecision. She paused near the door and looked back at the TV once more. This was cruel, but we were worse first, she managed quietly. I am not saying thank you, but I hear it now. Then she slipped out, leaving the door cracked open behind her. Taylor mumbled something about calling a ride and moved toward the hallway. He kept his head down, which was new for him. At the doorway, he turned enough to look at me. I hope you find someone who actually keeps your stuff safe, he said. That line landed harder than any apology he could have tried. Suddenly, it was just me and Mia in front of the frozen screen. The last screenshot still glowed, my nickname pinned there like graffiti. She walked over to the TV and yanked the power button hard. The room dropped into a heavy quiet that made my ears buzz. She turned back toward me with tears standing in her eyes. You ruined my friendships tonight, she whispered with a shaking voice. You humiliated me, you embarrassed them, you torched every connection I had. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and glared. All because you could not let one stupid joke go. Hearing her reduce everything to one joke almost made me laugh again. You ruined us long before I turned on the TV, I answered. You did it every time you hit send on another screenshot of my life. I did not make you write those messages or share those chats. All I did was hold up a mirror and invite you to look. Turns out you hate the reflection way more than I do. She grabbed her keys from the bowl by the door with jerky movements. I cannot even look at you right now, she snapped, voice cracking. If you are still here when I get back, we are done talking. The door slammed behind her, and the walls rattled for a second. I stood in the center of our living room, phone in my hand, heart absolutely wrecked. I started packing before she even got back. Not everything, just a fast, angry sweep into a duffel. Sweatpants, chargers, a few shirts rolled tight. My hands shook so much I dropped things twice. Every zipper sounded louder than the door slam still echoing. I kept waiting to hear her key in the lock. Waiting for the next round, for the real explosion. The clock on the stove crawled past 1 in the morning. I sat on the edge of the couch with the bag at my feet. Part of me hoped she would not come home at all. Her message hit before she did. A short vibration, then the preview lit up. Hope you're proud of yourself. Another one followed right on top of it. You humiliated me worse than anything I ever did to you. I stared at those lines until my eyes blurred. No mention of what she had actually done. No, I see it now. No, I should not have shared that stuff. Just pure focus on how I made her look. I typed 3 replies and erased them one by one. The first was a rant about boundaries and respect. The second was one word in all caps. The third was just I am done. None of them felt right while my chest still burned. In the end I wrote, I will be gone when you get back. Then I hit send and dropped the phone beside me. I meant it in that moment, which scared me. We had talked about moving in together long term. Now I was planning an exit like a stranger sneaking out. When her key finally turned, I was already standing. The bag strap dug into my shoulder in a steady, painful line. She stepped in with her eyes red and shoulders tight. We froze a few feet from each other, breathing hard. The anger between us felt almost physical in that space. You really left everything like that, she demanded as soon as she saw the TV. It sat dark and silent, but the ghost of the last image hovered. You ambushed me, you embarrassed my friends, you wrecked my night. Her voice cracked on that last word, and she clamped her jaw. Some part of me noticed she still called them my friends. I showed you what you did, I answered, gripping the strap tighter. I did not add anything, I did not edit anything. This is how you talk about me when you think I am nowhere near. My voice sounded rough, like I had been yelling for hours already. I had not yelled yet, that almost made it worse. She dropped her purse and stepped closer until we almost touched. You went through my conversations and broadcast them on a wall. Her finger jabbed the air toward the blank TV. You broke every bit of trust we ever had. Hearing her claim trust almost made my knees give out. I broke trust, I repeated, and I actually laughed. Do you hear yourself at all right now? I poured my biggest insecurities into you and your phone. You turned them into a team sport and kept playing after I begged you. My hands shook so hard I had to tuck them under my arms. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried a different angle. You made me look like an abuser, she said in a low voice. You know I am not some cartoon villain who hates you. I was venting, I was careless, I did not think it through. Normal people do not stage a public shaming over that. There it was, the word normal thrown like a measuring stick. I swallowed hard and tried not to scream. Normal people do not send screenshots of intimate texts to a crowd. Normal people do not rate their partner's body with their friends watching. And normal people sure as hell stop when someone cries and says it hurts. Her eyes filled again and she pressed her lips together. For what it is worth, I am sorry it hurt you, she finally said. That was never the goal, I swear to you. I got caught up, I thought we were all just hyping each other. Tonight you made sure nobody will ever tell me anything again. That line actually landed, I will not lie. I saw it, the wreckage of her little social circle. Part of me felt bad for that, or at least responsible. Another part answered with a cold, honest thought. They were never just telling you things, they were tearing me apart. I did not do this to destroy your friendships, I said. I did it because you would never take me seriously otherwise. If I came to you again with more screenshots, you would spin it. You would tell me I was misreading jokes and being dramatic. You only believed the truth when it reflected off your own face. She wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand. So that is it, you are really leaving tonight. Her voice sounded tired now, not just angry. You are willing to throw everything away over some tasteless jokes. That phrase, tasteless jokes, almost made something inside me snap. This is not about one night of comments, I answered. This is about a pattern where my private fears became entertainment. It is about you breaking a promise and then blaming me for noticing. I cannot unknow what I saw in that chat. And I cannot unhear the way you defended it afterward. She sank down onto the edge of the chair, shoulders slumped. For a second she looked a lot smaller than I had ever seen her. I loved you, she said quietly, staring at the floor. I still do, even after all of this. Maybe I just did not know how to protect you the way you wanted. That line hit me in a place I did not expect. I believed she loved me, that was never the problem. If anything, that made the betrayal sharper, not softer. Being loved and still thrown under a bus is its own kind of pain. It tells you love alone is not enough without respect. I loved you too, I answered, and it hurt to say it. I am not walking out because you never cared. I am walking out because you cared and still did it anyway. I need someone whose first instinct is to shield me, not share me. The room felt too quiet after that, like even the fridge held its breath. We sat in that heavy pause until my phone buzzed again. A new message flashed from an unknown number on the screen. Hey, this is Brooke, I got your contact from Mia's phone. I know tonight was brutal, I wanted you to hear this. None of that was okay, you had every reason to be upset. I showed the preview to her without saying anything. She glanced at it and then looked away quickly. More messages stacked under the first while we watched. Therapy guy here, I owe you an apology too, another number wrote. They were already processing what I had forced them to see. You are going to turn them against me now, she muttered. Send them your own version, make me the villain everywhere. I shook my head because honestly I was tired of the word villain. I am not sending them anything, I answered. I am just not covering for what actually happened. She stood up fast, walked to the door and pulled it open. Then go, she said, not shouting, just flat and resigned. Take your bag, take your screenshots, take your wounded ego. If you leave, do not text me tomorrow asking to come back. The last line stung because I knew she expected me to cave. I picked up the duffel and my keys and walked past her. For a second I caught the smell of her shampoo and almost turned. Almost. Then I stepped out into the hallway and let the door click shut. The sound felt small compared to everything we had just said. I stayed on a buddy's couch for a while after that. He did not ask many questions, just handed me a blanket and a pillow. At some point I told him a shorter version of the story. He winced at the nickname, then at the screenshots, then at the TV part. "Man, that was savage, but I get why you snapped," he said. Over the next few days, messages trickled in from different people. Brooke sent a long apology that actually sounded like she thought it through. Taylor wrote something clumsy about disrespect and started going to weekly therapy. Jenna simply wrote, "I messed up, I am working on myself, peace." I did not respond to any of them, but I read each one twice. Mia's texts were a different story. Sometimes they were furious, accusing me of being vindictive. Sometimes they were sad, asking if I remembered our good days. Once she wrote, "One day you will realize you overreacted and lost everything." That one made me set the phone down and walk outside for air. The messed up part is I do replay that night a lot. I ask myself if casting those messages was too far. If I could have just broken up quietly and kept it private. If there was a version where I walked away without blowing it up. An honest answer, I do not know. What I do know is this. Before the bathroom night, I thought shame lived only in my head. After the group chat, I realized other people could hold it for fun. After the TV stunt, I learned I could hand it back to them. Not clean, not gentle, but at least honest. I am not some perfect hero in this. I chose a nuclear option and lit the fuse myself. I hurt someone I once wanted to protect more than anything. I also finally protected the part of me I always sacrificed first. So yeah, it is not a neat win, it is a messy line. Now I am here on my friend's couch writing this out. Phone on the table, notifications off, heart still pounding a little. I keep wondering if I crossed from self-respect into straight revenge. If putting that chat on the TV was justice or just cruelty with receipts. So tell me, internet strangers, did I go too far or not far enough?